This Volkswagen Sharan has a very, very annoying problem. And that is the heating doesn't work. And as you know, it's the middle of the winter, absolutely freezing. And no matter what I do with this heating, I can't get it to work. So as you can see, it's set on high. All these flaps work. I've had the dash apart, had a good look underneath. Everything's working as it should. The heater matrix pipes are getting fairly warm, but not really warm. But I have noticed one thing, and that's that temperature gauge. Now this has been running for 10 minutes, and as you can see, it barely moves. It doesn't really go past 60 degrees this time of the year. And I think that is the problem. So in today's video, we're going to be changing the thermostat on this 2013 Volkswagen Sharan, fitted with a 2-litre TDI engine, which is the CFFB found in lots and lots of VAG cars of this era. So what does the thermostat do, guys? Well, basically, it helps regulate the temperature of the engine. So for maximum efficiency, you want the engine to be running about 90 degrees. That means you're going to get maximum fuel economy, it's going to run the best, and also your heater's going to work efficiently. So in summer, you've got a radiator on the front end of the vehicle. All petrol engine cars, diesel engine cars have these, and that basically keeps the coolant cool, stops overheating. In winter, you don't really need that so much because it's a lot colder outside. So what happens is the thermostat closes, stops the coolant flow going through the radiator, and keeps the engine at peak temperature. When it starts getting a little bit hotter, the thermostat will then open again, bleed some coolant off into the radiator, which will then cool it down, and it can regulate itself properly. So if you didn't have that thermostat, it's always going to run cold in summer. And if the thermostat is stuck open, it's going to do the same thing. So that's my theory. Let's get it in the garage. Let's have a look. So I've sent it up, and the first job is to take the belly pan off and then drain the coolant. Now, this isn't the biggest garage in the world. I'm very lucky to have it, but this is a big car and it don't go all the way up. So we're only up kind of half height, which is better than nothing. I do have this little seat to sit on, so I'm happy. So we'll take these screws out now and drain the coolant. These are held on with M8 bolts and a handful of self-tappers, and as usual, the impact driver makes light work of this. So to drain the coolant, we're going to take this bottom hose off and just drain it out. The thermostat is right up here between the compressor and the alternator. It's absolutely horrendous. They used to be really easy to access. They made it not very nice. I'm not happy. So let's crack on. So bottom hose off, this hose off, and I've caught most of it. Right, we've dropped it back down again. Next job's to take engine cover off and a few little bits. Now, I do apologise about the sun. It's very bright. It's quite low because we're winter. It's February. And it's a very clear, beautiful day. So it is a little bit dazzling. I hope it doesn't ruin the camera shots too much. The engine cover just pulls off and I remove the intake hose for extra clearance. So from here I can just see the thermostat and it's just down there. I can't get my hand on it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the throttle body there with the anti-shudder valve, and it's going to give us a bit better access. This is held on with 3 Torx 30 bolts, a plug and 1 retaining screw for the dipstick. Once they're all off, I loosen the lower hose Jubilee clips to allow me to pull the throttle body out of the way. It's quite tight but does come out okay. I also gave the throttle body a thorough clean off camera as the EGR had clearly been choking it all up. I fully removed the rubber turbo hose and capped the lower half to avoid any unwanted items going in the hole. I then unclip the surrounding coolant hoses and start to remove them. In theory, these do not need to be fully removed, however, as space is so tight, I'm just going to do it anyway. I have a handy ratchet tool that makes removing these clips a lot easier. If you're interested in one, let me know in the comments and I'll send you a link. I removed the 3 rubber hoses that go directly to the start. These are quite awkward to get to and were stuck on, so I had to use a little pick tool and a large screwdriver to help peel them off. So the thermostat now has 2 bolts left on it, all the hoses are off. Undo the 2 bolts and it can slide off. Now this is the new one and I just thought I'd quickly show you how it works. So this bolts to the engine block, like so. All your hoses come out. These are your auxiliary hoses for various bits, inlet manifold, cooling, turbo, them kind of things I'd imagine. And that is your bottom hose which goes to your radiator. So when this is closed, which it is now, so wax that in there, that is completely locked off. That is closed off. So that radiator will not get any coolant to it. It will just come out the other little hoses which go to auxiliary bits, other things. So once this gets to about 85 degrees roughly, maybe 90, the wax in that thermostat will melt, which will mean the spring will overpower the start and push itself open, which will then allow the coolant to flow through here into the radiator. Once it gets cold again, the wax will solidify and it will slowly close again. And basically that's what it does. Right. Going to undo them 2 bolts and hopefully it's going to slide out. Now there is a slight issue because there's a metal hose slots into here with an O-ring, that looks a bit difficult, that looks a bit tight, so that might hinder us a little bit. Also, this end pushes into block on an O-ring as well, so I'm going to have to kind of pull it forward and slide it out. Let's give it a go. There's the offending item. As you can see, visibility is not the best. I'll hopefully film as much as I can for you guys. I might have to take the dipstick out. We'll see. These bolts are far more difficult to get to than they look. They're half covered by an alternator, meaning I really struggled to get a socket and extension on them. Luckily, after using a selection of tools, I managed to crack them off, and once loosened, the bolts moved freely, meaning I could turn them with long nose pliers and a magnet to extract them. I pulled the thermostat forward and released it from the block. I then had to unbolt the steel hose to the right of the stat to give me enough room to slide it out. The bolt's really hard to see, but it's on the front right side of the engine. Once out, you can prise the hose to the right, giving you just enough space, and I mean just enough. Right, so thermostat's out. Was an absolute nightmare, if I'm honest. I'd give it a 4 out of 5 for difficulty rating. Probably the worst thermostat I've ever done. So if you're not a competent mechanic, I probably wouldn't recommend doing this job. I'm going to put it back together in reverse order. I don't think you guys need to see that, but what I will do just beforehand is I'll clean all the connections up, so that where it goes into the block, for example, with some fine sandpaper, use a little bit of silicone grease on all the seals before I slot it all back together, then I'll refit it in reverse order, and then next time you see me, we'll be filling it back up with coolant. So I've just done a little experiment, guys. The water is 60 degrees, so that's full of water, and notice it's pouring out at the end, which should be closed off. So that should be fully closed at 60 degrees, not open like it is. So it's obviously just opening prematurely, which is the fault. There we go, guys, all back together. Next job is to fill it with coolant. Now, the best way to do this would be to vacuum fill it. However, I haven't got a tool to do that, so we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm just going to pour it in slowly, leave the cap off, run it up until temperature, leave the heater on, that kind of thing, and hopefully it'll get all the air out that way. So I'm using VAG approved long life antifreeze. This is the red stuff. It's not too expensive, if I'm honest. It's concentrate, so it needs mixing 50-50. Ooh, didn't mean to do that. Right, what I'm going to do now, guys, I'm going to start it up, put the heater on. Right, it's now running. It's going to warm up slowly. Heater's on flat out, pointing at the windscreen, which is what you want. We're just going to keep an eye on this coolant level. So there we go, guys, it's done. The thermostat's now working properly. The coolant temperature is 90 degrees. The system self-bled itself to an extent. I've basically ran it up to temperature with the cap off, and then I just topped it up, given it a good road test, and it seems to be okay. Heat is blown lovely, so I can't complain. The car is fixed. Well, hey, hope you liked the video. If you did, show support by hitting the like button, leave a comment below, and obviously if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button.